Hello everyone, nice to see you again. It's Nath Day back with another episode of Mental Roots. We're going at a fast pace, so already this is episode 7 of season 2. So if you've been catching up so far, thank you for your support. Because right now we're still in early days, we're still building a fan base, we're still building a following. And when I say we, I mean me and anyone else who associates themselves with this podcast or considers themselves a supporter of this podcast. So, because this is a community at the end of the day, it's a community movement of just vulnerability and honesty amongst young black men. And so, all the young black guys who have been listening, thanks for your support. Please keep giving me feedback, send me DMs on Instagram and even Twitter. We've got our new Twitter page now, I think it's Mental Roots Pod 1, and that's the tag on Twitter. So go and support that. I'm yet to update the profile pic and all of that stuff as of the time I'm recording this. So we're slowly getting there. But yeah, this is part 2 of my conversation with Idriss. And yeah, he is part of a great network called the BIPP network. So they also do great work just like Inside Out, which was another organization that I've been getting in contact with in regards to mental health in the black community. So the BIPP network, they are a great network of black and just ethnic minority practitioners and professionals in the mental health industry. And so in this part of our conversation, me and Idriss especially, he comes from Cameroon, that's his birthplace. So he talks about kind of what it was like to come to the UK, to be a student here, and kind of the unhealthy cycles, thought cycles and patterns of behavior and toxic ideas of masculinity that he kind of had to unlearn when he came here. So very interesting stuff, man. And that's always something I've been interested in, is it's like the difference between young black guys growing up in this country versus growing up in an African country, and to make it clear that not all African countries are the same, that there's not this monolith. So eye-opening stuff, and we're going to get straight into it.
It was an interesting time because I would live with one uncle and auntie until I would basically bankrupt them, then be moved to another uncle and auntie, then kind of rot-
And
me
these
and
aren't
my siblings
like,
would be
they're not
rotated around.
related uncles and aunties, they're just,
No, no, these were
oh, they
siblings
were
of my mom.
related. Oh, okay.
Yes, siblings of my mom's, who we were kind of like in a rotation with all of them,
Right, okay.
as they were helping my parents raise us in a sense, given that my parents were not there to do so. So
Mm,
it was an interesting time because there wasn't any sense of continuity.
mm.
Um,
Sorry, just to
things
get a
sometimes.
clearer understanding. So your parents, they were seeking asylum in Europe, right?
Mhm.
So what kind of made, was it because they couldn't afford to look after you through that you had to stay in Cameroon,
Well, as
or
asylum seekers, they really didn't have any financial
mm,
um, stability themselves.
right,
I still have to go through what was it that their experience was. I've had a glimpse of it, but
okay.
really and truly, what they go through, what they went through as asylum seekers, is atrocious.
Mm,
Um, and when I actually came to the UK, I did work in an asylum seeking charity as a
okay.
volunteer in a charity that my dad was very like active in as well because he got helped, and he
Mm,
also helped a lot of other asylum seekers and refugees in Bristol.
okay.
But their conditions are not, it's not great. The
Mm,
way that they're treated is not great, and it needs improvement. But
mm,
while they were going through that channel of seeking asylum and being granted asylum, and then eventually being granted, permanent stays, and then naturalization, it was an ordeal. But
mm,
as that was happening, Um, yeah, we had to grow up, we had to go to school, we had to be fed, we had to be clothed, and all of it. And in Cameroon, that cost a lot of money because
Mm,
things are not subsidized by the government the same way. Um, and yeah, so my uncles and auntie would pull together whatever they had, whatever job they were doing, and feed us, clothe us, and have us, in the in as much comfort as they could afford.
mm,
Um, and when they were running dry, we would just, pass the baton to someone else.
mm.
So did that until I was 17.
Okay, and let's delve into um the effect of that, like mentally. Looking back, what maybe you might not be able to diagnose it the way a therapist would, but what's your hindsight in terms of, oh, I must have been, this thing must have had this mental effect on me. And
Mm.
I guess what would your advice be to the younger version of yourself experiencing that growing up, now knowing what you know about mental health and everything? Like, so I guess that's a twofold kind of question. Very deep.
When I was when I was younger, I sort of was always ready to move
Okay.
because
Yeah.
things will be happening very last minute. Uh,
Yeah.
and even if we were with one specific relative, there was still a level of uncertainty about our
Mm,
situation because it could be that the landlord, the house that we're renting, we're behind on rent, for example, and we get expelled, and you
mm,
have to find somewhere quick. Um, or the neighborhood that we were in was just not safe enough, or there's so many other reasons, but we were always kind of on the move.
mm,
So that meant I couldn't make friends um, because you would go to school,
mm-hmm.
be there for like 3, 4, 6 months, maybe a year, and you would then move to another area. And we don't have technology like that, like you don't
Yeah,
have a
you
phone
can't keep in
number to
touch.
keep
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Yeah, so after a while, you do realize that it's kind of pointless to make friends. Um, and those that you do make, you kind of keep in the back of your mind that I might just disappear tomorrow and we'll never see each other again. So don't get too attached.
Mm,
Um, so I did definitely get a professional, I guess, opinion on this. There, it's called attachment issues.
mm,
Um, so yeah, but other than that, just growing up in a neighborhood that is disenfranchised and deprived of basic human rights, you
mm,
do get to see a lot of violence, a lot of mistreatment, and yeah, that does kind of stays with you in a bit, seeing how cheap human life can be, how
mm,
easily discarded it can be for one stupid argument. Somebody loses their life. Um, the mistreatment of women, very flagrant. The mistreatment of the poor, the weak, the old. So it's an environment of like basic survival,
mm,
um, but at the same time, incredible disparity in what what people get away with,
mm,
So I don't know, subconsciously you just don't want to be a victim, so you distance yourself from anything that will make you look like a victim, and
mm,
that's where you kind of get traits that are toxic, such
mm,
as dealing with your angers in a very aggressive way
mm,
and being in denial of any sort of emotions that you might be feeling,
mm,
or being in denial of every sensitivity that you might want to express, being extremely averse to be associated with any femininity,
mm,
uh, or any sort of compassion, because that's considered feminine. So you don't want to seem
mm,
as compassionate. You don't want to seem as affectionate either, because that's also being seen as feminine and
mm,
weak. Um, yeah, kind of all of these things.
mm.
You're forcing yourself to harden. so that you don't become a victim.
You build that shell to protect you, or you at least you felt it was protecting you at the time.
Yeah.
So what was your outlet? How did you get your? What were you feeling at that time? Was it frustration? Was it just this is just how it is, and it was like a cold, a
Uh,
numbness? Like what? How would you describe it?
I was smart, so I was quite bright at school,
Mm-hmm.
but I was also small.
Mm.
By that I mean I was younger than the average students in my classroom. So in Cameroon, our education system allows students to be held back if they don't meet the educational requirement, so they don't get
Okay.
forward in class. So you will often see children in the classroom with like 5 years difference.
Ah, okay.
And
So it's all just based on your ability, and does it work the other way as well? If you're mature for people your age, you're moved up straight away, or
not mature, if you're intelligent, you move
intelligent.
up.
Yeah,
Like
there's a
if you
difference.
get the
Yeah,
grades, it's so
there's
much of a
two different
difference.
things.
So yeah, I, for example, got moved up once
Mm,
because I was just above the average in my class, and they were like, he's not supposed to stay here. So he moved him up to the next class, which meant that I got to secondary school
hmm.
at 10.
Wow.
Um, and little me in my huge uniform, because the uniform was supposed to last you at least three
Yeah,
years.
yeah,
So they were predicting
yeah.
he's gonna go through
We have
puberty.
that
So
here as
yeah,
well,
yeah,
especially
let's
from
just
African households. We are not
bag
going to keep
him
buying
up.
you new clothes, so you wear the
Exactly.
same one.
So I had my huge out uniform, my huge bag as well, because I was coming from primary. So in
Yeah.
primary school, you get to bring all of your books to school
Okay.
and all of your pens.
Mm.
I mean, books and like school book as well,
Hmm.
like the writing books and the book academic ones. So you get to bring all of that because what you have one teacher that teaches you the whole curriculum.
Wow.
Well,
Okay.
in secondary school, you have timetables and
Yeah.
different subjects for different
Oh yeah,
teachers, so
yeah,
you don't have to bring everything on the same day. But I had my
yeah.
big ass, big ass bag just strolling through. I was a I was a green boy. It
Mm.
was hilarious looking back.
Mm-hmm.
So my outlook was, I am smart,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm too small. Everyone in my class is bigger than me.
Mm.
Um, I can't, I can't be bullied. There's no way I would be bullied because I'm a man and I'm firstborn. So the
Mm.
pride that comes from being a firstborn and having the duty of protecting your youngest, you
Yeah.
don't want to be somebody else's, playboy or
Yeah,
play
yeah.
toy.
Yeah, I get you.
So because of that, I figured if I associate myself with the crudest guy, no one's gonna mess with me.
Mm.
And so that's what I did. Um, I started associating with the guys who were serious about that life, and nobody messed with me.
Mm.
Um, And yeah, I think the outlook that I had was I was very aware of my shortcoming and I was actively meeting them, or I was actively compensating for them.
Okay.
Like I said, in terms of making relations with the people that would back me in case of me being bullied or whatnot. But
Mm.
also because I was intelligent in school, getting very positive opinion from my teachers and
Mm-hmm.
like the staff, because they will see me and they will not think of anything negative towards me because I did my homework on time. I engaged in school. I, yeah, did great in exams.
Mm.
I was very quick with it, very smart. But I also was flunking schools and going out with my boys and terrorizing the neighborhood and all of
Mm.
that. But yeah,
Mm. Okay. So you're doing all of this, I guess what comes next? Like what at what point was there any point that you realized, you know what, these coping mechanisms of survival and different things, they're not good in the long run? Like when did you start to realize that, and did this coincide with when was this before you moved to the UK or after, or like kind of take us through I guess the next chapter of
yeah.
your life in terms of actually realizing, hang on, there's a better way,
Mm.
to go to handle the different things I've been through, if that makes sense.
That happens when I come to the UK
Okay.
and I go through sixth form because sixth form is still kind of juvenile, still kind of childish a little bit. You
Yeah,
still have that,
yeah.
you still have that desire to be the guy and whatnot. So yeah, that phase went by. I think
Hmm.
when I was at university, and I was expected to be responsible.
Hmm.
Not that it was anything new to me because I've been responsible since my dad was like, take care of your mom and siblings for me at 5 years
Mm,
old. But it was a new it was a new level of responsibility because I was now living by myself. I
mm,
had to monitor my own time. Nobody else was telling me what time to come home anymore. So I had to kind of be mindful of my sleeping schedules and all of that. Um, I was fending for myself. My dad kind of explicitly said, once you go to uni, you're out of my responsibility in a sense. Like, I
you're on
got
your
other
own,
kids
mate.
to worry about. Yeah, you're on your own, mate.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this insightful episode so far. I just want to use this brief intermission to quickly share with you something that's really been helping me the past few months in terms of my physical health, which in turn has helped my mental health too. Because you see, it's very easy for us to talk about mental health, forgetting that our physical health is connected with it, because our bodies do need certain nutrients and certain things to help our brain deal with the stress that's running through our body. And so, to manage our adrenaline levels, to manage our adaptogens. And so the past few months, I've been using a variety of food supplement products to help me in different aspects of my health. For example, to help me with my stress levels and my concentration levels, I've been taking these really great organic optimized nootropics shots, or which are abbreviated as on shots. They're little juice pouches that have a rich flavor, a rich raspberry flavor, which you can mix with water or your own kind of drink mixture. And it's been helping me. Just about 1 cup a day has helped me get through my coursework load, as well as my podcasting, as well as all my other content, including my Mental Route short film. And so if you're someone like me who's pretty hardworking and easily gets quite stressed or worn out through work, these are great natural caffeine shots that you can take without the usual crash that you get from coffees and energy monster drinks and all of that stuff. So if you want to know more about that, there is actually a link in the written description for this podcast episode, and you can book a quick consultation call with me where we can discuss these products and where you can get them from. And so just select a time slot in that link and we'll consult you. And there are other products as well, including some really rare wild Alaskan fish oil pills, which I've been using. Not your typical fish oil pills, obviously rich in omega-3, but for me personally, they've really helped me wake up with a fresh mind, with no baggy eyes, very clear white eyes, which is quite unusual for me. I usually get red eyes, and it takes me quite a while to get started and get energized in the morning, but these pills have just sped up that process to help me start the day better, which is also very important. The way we start our days has a huge impact on our mental and emotional outlook throughout the day. So if you also want to know about that, you can again book that slot in the link to meet me and talk about that. But regardless of what products and foods and drinks that you take, just remember to think about the nutrients, do your research, see what nutrients are important for your body to help your mental health and to help your physical health as well, to help your stress levels. And let's be practical in how we deal with our mental health too. So with all that said, let's hop back into the interview.
So that was interesting to deal with. But yeah, I think once I realized that the notions of mas not necessarily masculinity, because that kind of came on later on, but
Mm,
how I was getting by in Cameroon
Mhm.
was not working here.
Mm.
Like, first I learned that in the UK, you're not allowed to carry knives.
Mm.
And if you get arrested with one, you're going to jail. I was like,
Mm.
okay, damn. And also, like, you can't fight. And if you're arrested for fighting, you're also going to jail.
Mm.
So even if somebody attacks me first, they're like, yeah, if you damage somebody too bad, you're going to jail. So that idea of self-defense, that was so much of a
A norm.
cop out,
Yeah.
back home was no longer here for that. And I
Mm.
was also kind of very clear on not getting any trouble with the law because, again, I'm children of immigrant
Mm.
and asylum seekers. So my legal, not legality, but my legitimacy, because legally,
Mhm.
great, but legitimacy as how I'm perceived, as
Mm.
somebody who's not born here is quite strong. So the idea that they could just lead, get you out anytime they want to,
Mm.
you don't want to, you don't want to give them any excuse. That was how it was put to me. So yeah, I realized, okay, my defense mechanisms, my different barriers, my alerts, things that my triggers, for example,
Mm.
were just going off too often in
Mm.
scenarios that were not meeting the level of danger that I was prepared to respond for. And so I was like, okay, something is wrong here. Like I'm not functioning properly, you know.
Mm.
And then what also then happened when I was at university was I met my then girlfriend,
Mhm.
and I had to shred all of those built-in mechanisms to be able to treat her right.
Mm.
So in terms of loving somebody else and genuinely loving them without any sort of selfish or self-serving agenda behind it.
Mm.
Yeah, that was a learning curve for me, realizing that so much of the notion that I understood for what it means to be a man were being challenged. Um, so yeah, after that, I was like, okay, so many things has happened in my life. I need to understand why I function this certain way and how can I be much more efficient going forward.
Mm. Amazing, man. So, um, I guess that takes me back to the first question that I kind of put on the form that I sent you. Then, yeah, I guess when did you start hearing of the term mental health, and um, when, like, yeah, what was, I guess, your first kind of education regarding that, and how that's helped you to be who you are today?
Mm. My both of my parents are mental health workers,
Mm.
so I had
Were
an
they always
understanding.
mental health workers, or?
I mean, since they were able to work in the UK, I imagine so.
Okay.
I never really dug into their work history like that,
Okay.
unfortunately. So, but since I came here, they were mental health workers.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I knew of mental health from them,
Mm.
and then there were also like campaigns happening either on social media or on TV talking about mental health. And then I also started working as a mental health care assistant, so that also got me in like an insight of what mental health is. But it was
How
very
did
much
you
from
get
the
into that care assistant role? Like, was it something
uh,
you were already passionate about, or was it just a job to get you by? Or
no, I was interested in medicine. So I
okay,
came in with the ideals of becoming a medical doctor.
okay,
Um, so that was kind of like a way to get into the medical route.
mm,
So I did that. Um, so yeah, mental health. So my exposure to mental health at the time, well, at the first time that I was exposed to it, was very kind of curative. Like
mm.
they were in these bedrooms, restricted, not really given the level of freedom that everyone else is enjoying. So it was kind of like, oh, something's wrong with them. let's park them on the side and you just monitor them, make sure that they don't get out of control.
Mm.
And as I kind of grew more inexperienced in that field, because I did that for 2 years before I went to university,
Mm.
I got to understand more so the humanity
Mm.
behind mental health patients.
Right.
And that was due to me working in the acute unit where I got people who were schizophrenic and psychotic and suicidal, depressed, addicted, and eating disorders.
All right.
So with them and having conversations with clients, it was quite apparent that they had normal lives outside of this institution.
Wow. Mm.
Something just, went wrong. And then they
Mm.
come in here, then they're going to find the right treatment and they're going to get help and they're going to leave and they're going to go back to their normal lives. And I think that was like a switch for me to see that, it's not condemnation. It's not condemnation when uh, you have any mental health issue. And yeah, I think kind of that laid the groundwork for me in better understanding mental health and understanding that we all deal with it in some way, shape, or form.
Mm.
And I remember this analogy I found of, taking on your mental health is like going to the GP. You don't have anything wrong necessarily, but in the case that you may have something, if they catch it early enough, you might it might save your life or it might cost you less
Mm.
to deal with the problem. So
Wow.
that's why I've been quite adamant in encouraging people to check their mental health quite regularly via therapy or meditation or kind of self-reflection, any sort of exercise where you are aware of your mental state, aware of what is your emotional state is like, and making sure that you're still in the balance on a
Mm.
day-to-day basis.
Okay. Cool. Okay, that's interesting. And so when did, I guess, the BIPP work come into play? So uh even prior to that, like what kind of what was your journey into kind of your mental health, and what's helped you kind of better address kind of the deep rooted issues you've had growing up, this sense of abandonment, fearing, getting too attached to someone only for them to let you go
Mm,
again, and then the masculinity, the false ideas of masculinity growing up as well. What tools have helped you kind of help undo the damage of that? So you talked about your relationship, your girlfriend, and so maybe you can expand on that a bit more, but also like your journey into working with BIPP and kind of basically just the past few months and years, like what
mm,
different things have you been doing to help you um, undo kind of that kind of damage? And also from that, what advice would you give to
yeah.
um, other young black men, especially young black men who um, maybe are, were born in other countries, and um, it was even harder for them in a sense to adjust to living in a multi-ethnic environment. So
Mm,
what would your advice be to those sort of people as well?
okay.
So
So,
that's two questions in one.
so let's start with how did I get involved with mental health in general and
Mm.
BIPP in particular? So, when I was at university, like I mentioned, I was kind of very keen on creating that sense of community so that people
Mm.
can be their authentic self because
Yeah.
it was very apparent that a lot of people were walking around with masks on
Mm.
and they're like I said, built-in defense mechanism. So they were just walking around with a lot of masks on, which when you were in an individual conversation with them or when you were like on a one-to-one and you made them to feel kind of safe and comfortable,
Mm.
they would just take the mask off and be
Mm.
authentic and you will see them for who they are and the richness in them that they didn't necessarily show to the rest of the
Mm.
people because they were afraid of being judged or made fun of and all of this kind of stuff. So my immediate goal was to create a sense of community so that people can just understand that we all go through a lot of things together and we should not be too judgmental towards one another and just accept each other for who we are. So
Yeah.
create a sort of like a safe space and get people to be authentic there first. And once that's done, people will just be a bit more caring to one another and
Mm-hmm.
help each other be the best versions of themselves.
Mm.
So once my time at university was coming to an end, and then I realized that I really didn't get to do that to the full completion of it. I
Mm.
started it, but I didn't complete it. There was a
Mm.
sense of this is an area that I'm very comfortable doing, and it seems like it's um I have something that allows people to do that easily with me. Just
Mm.
be their true self, be authentic. So when I came to London, I wanted to do a lot of community work.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, while I was at university, I got to befriend psychology students who were in their third years.
Okay.
And the things that they were just talking in their regular language were things I was very interested about:
Mm.
human behaviors, trauma, trauma, trauma generally, and how to rehabilitate from trauma, um, how cognitive and your cognitive is impacted by your experiences, all of these kind of things. So I was very interested in psychology from this interaction. And coming to London, and then I realized I could study psychology, and it will allow me to better explore that interest that I have in human behaviors and human interaction. And
Mm.
why is it that people are mean to each other, but they're
Mm.
not necessarily a horrible person themselves? They're just mean as a way to react to whatever. So I signed up for a master's conversion course,
Okay.
and then I started a master conversion course. And being in the field of, as a student,
Mm.
you hear about events that happen and stuff like that. So I heard about Work Weekly, uh, approached them. No, I heard about an event, and one of the Work Weekly executive was there. Approached her. She was very keen in, explaining to me what the work that they do. I was like, oh, I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I signed up with Work Quickly as a mental health coordinator since I was a mental health, I was a psychology student. So got involved with them, and then later on I signed up with BIPP,
Mm.
and that's kind of how we started. I was there at the first event of the BIPP, the
Oh
launch,
wow. Okay.
and it was a very incredible experience because what they were doing was they were addressing racial barriers in academia,
Mm.
and they invited a lot of doctors and a lot of practitioners, and they
Mm.
had a room full of black and other people, other any minority groups as well, just wanting to hear about the different barriers within academia.
Mm.
So from there on, we just decided, okay, yeah, this is something that we can actually do as a collective. So that's where the team was born, and that's kind of how I signed up with the whole initiative.
So that's the end of part 2 of my chat with Idriss. So hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, on whatever platform you're listening to, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, what else? Google Podcasts, whatever. Even YouTube, if you're watching this, obviously you're on YouTube. Whatever platform you're on, please hit that subscribe button. Give it a like as well if you're on YouTube, so that the algorithm knows that you actually like this stuff and you're more likely to see new content when it comes out. So please support in that way, especially if you enjoyed this episode. Very eye-opening stuff. Really put things in perspective for me because again, for me, I consider myself fairly privileged in terms of my experience, being a minority ethnic boy or man growing up in the UK. So like, at least I've been born here. I'm more familiar with the culture here, and even the way I'm speaking right now, in many ways could give me a privilege in various circumstances where I am interacting with white people and stuff. But for guys who are coming from other countries, and not to say that this is a unique issue with African migrants, but with any migrant, adjusting into Western society also comes with its own prejudices and stereotypes that you have to deal with, but especially with the negative stigma that's on Africa, the weight can be even more heavy. But you know, I like how Idriss was very honest. You know, he wasn't romanticizing his experience in Cameroon, and it was just more about his life. It was a very specific kind of situation with his family and the people he was around. So all that is to show that, you know, the roots that we have for our behaviors are very unique and specific, and that's why we have these kind of very specific conversations, because we can't talk about mental health and not talk about personal stories. So with all that being said, part 3, the last part, is coming out next week. Yeah, I think the 3-part pattern is how it's gonna go for a lot of these guests, because we go deep, as you can see. So again, I'm on Instagram at Mental Roots Podcast, and then Twitter is Mental Roots Pod 1. And so again, like I said at the beginning, DM me, message me. What did you like about this conversation? What stuck out to you? You know, let's have a conversation. I haven't really had many people messaging me as of yet, but I'm confident that's going to change as we keep expanding and reaching more people. Again, if you know of any friends who would benefit from this, whether they're struggling with mental health in general, regardless of their race or sex, but even more especially if they're black and male, and if you know of someone who could benefit, share a link, you know. And if you also have a story to share in terms of your mental health journey, and especially if you have expertise to share, again, message me on Instagram and let's get it done. BIPP Network, you can follow them at BIPP Network. That is literally their tag in Instagram. So and they're on other platforms as well. There's a link to their website in the written description for this episode on whatever platform you're listening to. And really great content. I'm just scrolling through their stuff now. They've got IGTV clips, they've got different images of the various people, the various team members and psychologists and practitioners who are part of this network. So especially if you're someone who's interested in getting into psychology or any kind of therapy, anything to do with mental health on a professional level, this is a great network to get in contact with. And even if you're not a practitioner, you're just someone who wants to raise awareness, check out their resources, check out the information that they have. And I'm going to do my homework as well and check that out and see what can help me. And because together we're unstoppable, you know, let's share the knowledge we have and the tips we have in just navigating through life, the mental tolls of life. So with all that said, thank you for listening. Subscribe, like, share, comment, and we'll see you next week. Peace.